I'm sure if I go out there and talk to those ponies, they'll see that they're being unreasonable.
I need 100 blankets, and I need them now! Sorry, Twilight.
AJ, you just made her list. After being absent for a season, M.A. Larson is back with yet another episode commenting on the fandom. This one is called Fame and Misfortune, and it seems to focus on the fandom from a very different angle. A lot of people have been liking this episode since it came out, stating that it's a pretty cool commentary on the Brony fandom. So what do I think of it? Well, it's better than a lot of other episodes in the show. It even has some very clever writing, but I don't think it pulls off anything deserving a real high level of praise. At least not like what the perfect pair got. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Twilight is busy walking through town when she comes across some kids fighting. She takes the time to help them out, which results in her remembering her old friendship journal. When she finds it and tries showing it to Starlight, she discovers that it hasn't been given the best care. But Starlight is able to not just restore it, but create 6 copies for the main 6 to share. That's when Twilight gets the idea to publish more copies of the journal in the hope that it'll help others through the lessons that she and her friends have learned. Unfortunately, those who do read the book seem to misunderstand its meaning and proceed to annoy and harass them in several different ways. Twilight and Starlight try to keep the situation under control, but it only seems to get more and more out of hand. Can Twilight and the other girls find a way to get the townspeople to stop causing drama over the journal and help them understand its true meaning? No. No, they do not. From what I heard, this episode was actually played live at this year's BronyCon. But even if you weren't there to see it, many people have grown aware of it in the short time that it's been on. A lot of people seem to really like this episode, and to its credit, I can see why. The fandom has always appreciated the show whenever it takes a moment to acknowledge it, letting them know that the staff are very thankful to it for helping them come so far with the series. Slice of Life did this while trying to fit it into a story about setting up a wedding, but in this case there's a clear difference. Where Slice of Life acknowledges the fandom, Fame and Misfortune seems to address the fandom. It seems to mainly be a commentary about all of the different sections of the fandom and all of their different feelings towards the show. And the humorous irony to this is that it's totally an episode that M.A. Larson would write. You get the feeling that he's using this story to take a jab at people who have expressed mixed feelings towards the series while still respecting them. He even makes a quick gag about someone stating that Twilight was better before she became an alicorn. It's easy to tell that this episode satirizes the fandom's attitudes towards different aspects of the show while carrying a sense of dignity to it. My problem with it is that it just does it in a way that feels too typical. I mean, yeah, the episode does explore every over-the-top and over-dramatic faction of the fandom that you can expect. Fans who overly idolize a single character. Fans who tend to misunderstand an episode's deeper meanings and only watch it at face value. Fans who argue over who's best pony and who's a badly written character. Fans who disapprove of the show's changes. Fans who complain about the lack of character development. Fans who ask questions to the staff. Fans who make headcanons and theories. And we see all of the ways that it bothers the main 6. They feel overwhelmed, harassed, insulted, creeped out, weirded out, annoyed, and disrespected. But as the episode goes on, it just becomes more and more expected and just feels too repetitive. Even if that's the point of the concept, it's still not done in an interesting way. It just feels too obvious. They reflect on what fans have said about the show, and that's literally it. They don't do anything with the concept beyond that. Let me put it this way. You can make an episode about addressing the fandom, but go all out. Show how harmful the fandom's overreacting can be not just to the show and its staff, but to the fandom itself and individual fans of the show. They do something resembling that with how it affects the main 6, but it doesn't feel strong enough. It doesn't go far enough. It feels like Larson could have done so much more than just have the townspeople imitating the fans throwing out their criticisms. We could have gotten hate mail to the main 6 resembling fans raging and getting angry with them. Friendships ending because of everyone's different views on the journal. Ponies getting rid of the book by throwing it out, resembling how they just hate them now and don't want anything to do with them. And we should be getting ponies who complain about all of the main 6 in some way, not just Fluttershy or Twilight or Rarity. And at the end of the episode, there are some fans of the journal who realize that they were acting silly and try to make up for their previous behavior. I know this stuff doesn't happen all the time, but it has happened and it feels like something important that was missing from the commentary. If this was meant to take on fans who take things too seriously, then these are things that should be part of the episode. And because they're not, it feels like the satire is incomplete. There's also a few noticeable things that don't make sense. For one thing, how can the girls just allow the journal to get damaged or ruined like this? Assuming that the lessons they learned are actually important to them, you'd think that they would take better care of it. And on top of that, when did they stop using it? Is it because they ran out of paper? Well, why couldn't they just get a new book and start a collection of journals of lessons that they learned? And didn't this journal originally belong to Celestia and Luna? You'd probably think that the girls would pay more attention to it and take better care of it since it's a keepsake from the royal sisters. And why isn't Spike in the episode? He was learning lessons alongside the girls around the time that they were writing lessons into the journal. I'm pretty sure he wrote something in there. And wait a minute, why aren't the CMC more involved in this situation? They talked about lessons they learned in the journal too. Why weren't they getting people to speak with them about Twilight Time or sibling rivalry or overcoming a potential disability? Were they just part of the drama and got into a fight over who's the better older sister? We never see them do much, so I can only assume that's what happened off screen. Alright, so I've gone on and on over what I'm sure will get people to downvote this video, so you probably think I didn't like this episode. Well, I don't actually dislike the episode. In fact, it has a lot of good stuff in it. The characterization of the main 6, for instance, is really good. It feels like how they'd actually react when dealing with these types of situations. Pinkie grows tired of people laughing at her for no reason and she tries to speak some sense into them. And then she goes into hiding and even considers retiring from being funny. That's a pretty interesting position for her to be in, as she's never had that happen to her before. We see Fluttershy taking a moment to assert herself when being harassed. And we see how the constant evasion of her personal space has been annoying her. We see how Rainbow Dash becomes sick of being popular all the time, which demonstrates a limit on her ego. Applejack becomes stressed and overwhelmed due to the hardship of taking care of honorary family members. And Rarity becomes deeply discouraged about her ability to satisfy her clients. And her breakdown is certainly one of the episode's most iconic segments. We see how Twilight was well intended in publishing the book and how out of her hands the situation is, which understandably leads her to beating herself up. I also really like Starlight's role in the episode. She's more of an observer of these events due to how she wasn't there when this journal was being used, and it appropriately fits her into a supporting role. She tries helping Twilight out and comes across as a supportive shoulder for her to lean on. The comedy is definitely one of the episode's best elements. It has a great sense of humor with very well-timed jokes and very well-delivered lines. It has a silly and innocent food fight between Tula and Coconut with Twilight caught in the middle, and seeing how it annoys her makes it additionally humorous. There's this one guy who just pops on screen asking about the possibility of Diane and AJ being related, which is so effective at catching you off guard that it comes across as really funny. There's a moment where one of Fluttershy's harassers says how she's nothing like the Fluttershy in the book, only to say that he doesn't know how to feel about that, which comes across as cynically nerdy in an ironically funny way. And holy cow, the level of expression on the characters' faces in this episode is outstandingly hilarious. There's a good variety to them and they do a great job of implementing how the girls feel. Even the song has a nice beat to it and it has a meaningful metaphor. It talks about how it's okay to have flaws when you have ways of working around them. It even talks about how important they are as they can help people relate to each other and balance each other out. And the ending has a really good hook to it. There's these two kids named Tula and Coconut who appear a few times in the episode when Twilight tries to help them out. She even shares the journal with them, hoping that it'll help them through the lessons that she and the others learned. And at the end of the episode, Starlight finds them and brings them to the others, showing how despite all of the trouble, they actually learned something from reading the journal. As where everyone else was reading the book for all of the wrong reasons, these two actually paid attention to its meaning. They value the main 6 for how they grew as individuals and how it inspired them and encouraged them to do better. Not because they did cool stuff, went on adventures, and did some funny things. What makes this ending feel so special is because it gives me the feeling that the episode episode came full circle by its conclusion. It was Tula and Coconut who inspired Twilight to bring back the journal to begin with, and knowing that they actually learned something and gave the main six confidence has a lot of meaning to it. It's like they were cleverly hinted at as background characters who played an important key moment in the story. It doesn't matter how much drama the journal caused, because as long as the girls made a difference and a positive influence in some ponies' lives, that's all that really matters. And the actual problem, the one with the townspeople still fussing over the journal, is never resolved by the end. And I actually think that was the point that the episode was going for. By the end of the day, people are always going to be fussy when discussing things when they're in a fandom, and it's not something that just magically goes away altogether. But even if it is still there, it doesn't have to bother you. You can always choose to ignore it, focusing on the good stuff and not letting the bad stuff bother you. I actually think that's a nice lesson for anyone in the Brony fandom to take to heart. And the problem not being directly solved by the end is something that we've never seen before. For MLP, this is a new way to end the story, acknowledging the problem while helping the audience to understand that there's no immediate answer. I mean, this will probably get resolved later off screen, but for the way this episode concludes, it has a nice hang to it. I do respect the idea that the episode goes for, and at several points it does feel like a very spot-on commentary. I also like how they brought back the journal, bringing back something from the show's past and using it to tell a story. And it even takes time to build up its conflict and establish it properly. But my issue with the episode is that it feels like it's tackling the topic in a way that feels too one-note. I mean, when you hear that M.A. Larson is going to do an episode that satirizes the fandom's feelings towards the show, you would expect him to do a lot with this concept. But instead, he just does all of the basic and typical stuff. There's so much more that he could have done with this episode instead of just doing what he does. But in all fairness, I don't think that makes the episode bad. It's a really good idea for an episode, I just feel like this one could have done a lot more with it. It doesn't make the episode badly written, in fact it has a lot of good writing at times. It has a lot of good jokes, the main six and Starlight have good characterization, and the ending appropriately ties the story together. But the majority of the episode is meant to be M.A. Larson doing a commentary on the fandom. And if that's going to be the main focus of the episode, I was hoping there would be more to it than just what I was expecting. And unfortunately, this episode only gives me just what I was expecting. I'm pretty sure this episode is and will be interesting to a lot of people, and it is an interesting setup for an episode. It just doesn't interest me that much. I would watch the episode again for all of the good stuff in it, but I still feel like this episode could have been so much more. I think it's another one of those episodes that's okay. And if a lot of people still like this episode for what it is, I suppose that is a pretty good achievement on M.A. Larson's end. Thanks, M.A. Larson, for coming back and giving the fandom something to appreciate. MisAnthro Pony, over and out.